Hi everyone, welcome to my escape. Today's video is my February wrap-up, so it's my favorite video. This month I read 6 novels and 4 novellas. So for my 6 novels, I read 1 science fiction, 2 fantasy, 3 romance, and then 4 romance novellas. So definitely romance dominated, but it was also February, so what else do you expect? So this is my second wrap-up, and I'm gonna do it a bit differently than my first. Instead of doing it chronologically in terms of what I read in what order, I'm gonna separate it by genre. So if you only like one genre, if you only like 2 of them, you can just jump to the genre you want. And if you want them all, they're all there. So let's get into it. So starting with fantasy, I finished The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. It's the second one in the Mistborn trilogy. I read the first in December and then finished the second one now in February. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I think I rounded actually down on Goodreads to 3 stars. It's just like, there's a lot of middle in these books. I don't know, I don't really engage with it till the last third usually, in which point like I'm really invested, I'm really into it and I really enjoy it. And then again, it took me a long time to get through the first one, and then when I put the first one down, I immediately picked up the second one. But again, it still took me like 6 weeks to get through that one, which is a crazy long time for me. And I'm torn. So I don't really want to give a synopsis of the book because I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't read the first one. But the vibe of the book, it's, you know, high fantasy, complex characters, multiple POVs, in-depth magic system, morally gray characters, kind of band of thieves set on destroying an empire, those kind of vibes. While I'm here for all of that, I felt that the book had like too much politicking, too many internal monologues, too much said through an internal monologue. Like, it just felt unnatural and it kind of wrecked the flow for me. People's thoughts are not this structured, and they had so many like, oh, moments in their own head. I'm just like, I love dialogue in a book, and I love when you can see a character change through the way they interact with others. To me, that's more telling of a true change. When it's all internal and it's like they come to the realizations on their own and then they just lay it out for you, like word for word, I'm like, well, this is no fun. Like, I've been with you the whole story. I know this. You didn't need to spell it out for me. So I actually do really like the magic system in this one. I like how well it's described and explained. I like the various characters and how they evolve and develop and grow without overshadowing the main characters or the main plot. However, the romance to me took away from the story. It was used as a tool to show Vin's character development. Frankly, it just made it seem more shallow and more circumstantial instead of it showing through like platonic relationships or various relationships as in the first one. They continued the character development, but only through the lens of a romantic relationship with her, and it kind of undermined what the story was trying to do in the first book. I did wish her character had went in a kind of like a different direction, so that I found took away from it. So I'll get to the third one. I don't know when, because these are pretty thick books, but I will be finishing this trilogy. I don't know if I'm going to go through his whole stack of this world, because I know it's huge, but I will be getting through the trilogy. The second fantasy I read this month was In the Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. So I gave this book 4 stars. I loved this book. I have had this book on my shelf forever, and I think I've tried reading it like 2 or 3 times, but the first couple chapters are slow. I will say that. The writing, all that is slow, but once I got into this, I absolutely loved it. This book is just a whole vibe. Like, the plot's decent and stuff, but honestly, it's the vibe that I'm here for. I actually ended up picking this up on audio to like listen to it as I read it so that I could help myself focus. And then once I was brought into the story, then I was obsessed and I could not put this book down. Like, I literally think I spent an entire day just crushing it, and like with no break, nothing. I didn't finish the whole thing in a day, but I got a good majority of it done. It like made me want to study. It really gave me those like academia vibes. Nothing in my life ever makes me want to study, and this book like hit the mark for me. I was just like, yes. So this book like opens in a tavern in some small town. Some stuff happens, and then the innkeeper goes, let me tell you my life story. So you're now reading the story that he's telling, and it goes back to like his childhood and then how he grew up and then how he got into like the magic university, and everything was just a a vibe. I was obsessed. I was embraced. Some of the characters went in absolutely completely different directions than I was expecting. There were a lot of like twists and turns, but it still stayed on course for the story. I really, really enjoyed this, and I am dying to pick up the second book. But it's back home, so it's like 3,000 kilometers away. And yes, I could just go to the library and get it, and I might have actually already looked to see if they have it, and they do. But the problem is, it's a trilogy, and this got released in 2008, and this third book is not out yet. And there doesn't seem to be any signs of it being released anytime soon. So I'm like, I'm already so immersed. If I go and pick up the second book right now and crush it, and the third one just never comes out, I will be crushed. So I'm gonna take a little break, but I don't want to, and I don't know how long I'll be able to hold myself off, because I could wait till I go back home and read it, or I could just get it from the library. I don't know. What do you think? Comment down below. Should I just grab it from the library and crush it now? I don't know. I really don't love that the third book hasn't been released for so long, and it's like compared to like George R.R. Martin not finishing his series, because that will kill me if this story just sits unfinished. But thank you to both my friends who were like, you have to read this, because it was absolutely worth it. Just know, it takes a minute to get into it. On to science fiction. The one science fiction I read this month was Ender's Game, and this was a reread for me, but I absolutely loved this book. It's my favorite sci-fi of all time. Yes, it's a basic answer, okay? Everyone knows it. But it's amazing, and it lives up to its hype, and also if you haven't read it, don't watch the movie first. And if you watched the movie and didn't like it, still read the book. Like, it's always like the book's better than the movie, but this movie was actually bad on its own. Ender's Game follows a young boy starting at the age of 6. Kids get watched for certain traits that the military is looking for, and if they fill these certain traits, then they get taken by the military, like consensually kind of, and they get raised at like a military school to train and strategize and basically fight this alien species that's preparing to attack. So you follow Ender, who gets taken at the age of 6 to this military school, and you follow him through his training to prepare for the buggers, and just, it's really a look at like his growth, his development. The war games are so much fun to read about, like the strategizing. He's like a kid genius, but all of them there are like kid geniuses, and he's like the most geniusy sees. That's English. He's like the smartest of all of the genius people there. And watching him think through problems and come up with things and think outside of the box, you're just captured by him. And then the story also kind of veers off and looks at like his 2 siblings still on Earth, and they're also very smart and they're doing some manipulative things. And then the heads of this military school, kind of like their corruption or their morality or stuff like that, and their commentary on like his progress. So the whole book, like, you are just immersed. You are immersed right from the beginning, and you feel for Ender, and you're rooting for him, but you're not rooting for him. And then you get to the end, and you're like, oh my god. So this book is just phenomenal. I gave it 5 stars again, not shocked. I picked this up now because I'm actually going to be incorporating it into a university project I have to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna throw Ender's Game at you. So that's why I picked it up now. So I crushed this one on audio. I own the physical copy back home, but I crushed this one on audio just to kind of get through it again so that I could really prep for that project. And then even while I was like making my notes and everything, I was still like, oh, this is such a phenomenal book. Like, not even school can take away how good this book is. And that's incredible, because when you do something for school, it takes all the enjoyment out of it, but not this. So I would recommend this to everyone. This was the first sci-fi I ever read, so even if you're not a science fiction reader, read it. Maybe this will get you into the genre, because it's what pulled me in and has kept me here. This is the standard now. And now into the romance. So I crushed quite a bit of romance. One of the books I crushed was Daddy Crush. See what I did there? This I got off a recommendation video by Books with Samantha. She did a whole rec video on Big Boys, like the song, kind of like that's the vibe. And I had been very tired of every romance novel I pick up has the exact same description for the male love interest every single time. I'm like, I'm struggling to keep them apart in my head because they're the same. So I was like, you know what? Let me check out some of these recs. So I think I actually have 2 on this list that I read because of that video, so I'll link it down in the caption below. Definitely go check that video out. I love her content. So Daddy Crush, I gave 3 stars on Goodreads, but honestly this is more of a 2-star read, but I bumped it up because I am obsessed with the female main character, Jerusha. I can't say her name, but I'm obsessed with her. So this follows 2 neighbors, and the girl is post-grad school. She's an artist, and she lived a very sheltered, almost cultish, but not quite life, and she's kind of broken free of that, so she's trying to make the most of the world and make the most of life, but she doesn't necessarily have all the experience or the social skills that someone that lives in like normal society would. So she's really struggling with like intimacy, and she's gone on all these dates, and she's not really feeling a spark, but she is for her older next door neighbor, and he is for her too. So then she kind of goes, hey, I'm looking to experience life and kind of like explore things. Would you be open to like teaching me? And he was like, okay. So yeah, that's essentially the story. It's a very short novel, like almost a novella, but I think it's like 210 pages or something, so it just makes that crossover into being a novel. I loved the main character. She is so like unapologetically her and unapologetically honest, and she is not going to let that go. Like, she fought to be where she is in life, and she fought for a like certain level of acceptance of herself and like for the space around her to be accepting of her, and she is not going to give that up. And I adored that because that makes sense. Like, when you have fought as hard as she did to establish what she has, she's not going to give it up because, you know, of a misunderstanding or because she's unsure or something like that. Like, no, she's not just like extremely confident. Like, she still has self-doubt and stuff, but she doesn't let that deter her or take her away from living the life she wants. And I absolutely adore that. She doesn't hide. She's never like playing coy. She's just amazing, and every freaking scene with her, I was like, I love you, 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 I love you. So that bumped it up to a 3 for me. The story itself is a 2. It's a very, very like basic plot. And the guy, first of all, his name is Carl, which I didn't love. Second of all, he was so basic and annoying in the middle of the book. In the beginning and the end, had a couple like inner monologues talking about how he knew he was a poor communicator and he was actively trying to address this and fix this. And I was like, yes, I support, I'm here. Like, you are old-ish. Like, he's not old, but like, there's an age gap in this. Like, you're pushing 40 or over 40, I can't remember. But you're old, okay? You should be able to recognize your own faults, and you should still be trying to work towards that. So I really did appreciate that. But then in the middle of the book, that all fell away, and he was just a poor communicator, and he was annoying, and he was like, oh, I shouldn't. And I'm like, get over it. So he was annoying me in the middle, but came through again in the end. So overall, this was kind of like a fun read. I would never do like a reread of it, but I do love the main character. And if you're looking for just kind of like a fun time, this wasn't too bad. I also read Read Me, and this followed Cole and Summer, and Cole is a want-to-be kind of struggling author, but every day he comes to the library to work on his stories, and Summer's the librarian. And yeah, then it really just follows them starting a relationship. They tried to throw like other plot points in here, kind of, but then they got lost halfway along the way or forgotten, or were really anticlimactic in the end. Overall, I gave this a 2-star, and the longer I think about it, I'm like, I don't even know if it's that. I didn't hate it, so I probably won't drop it down to a 1-star, but there was a lot that I was like, I don't love this. The writing had its cringy moments for sure. Like, I can't get this one thing out of my head, and it's literally like, he was like, I want to maneuver her like a garden shovel. Not like a hoe. Like, literally called her a garden shovel. What does that even mean? Why did I need to read that? But there was other things as well, like Summer, the character of Summer was so flat and so basic and such like a people pleaser that she had no other like personality trait beyond that. She was boring, she was basic. Also, the characters talked like they were way younger than they actually were, which was consistently like taking me out of the story because I'm like, wait, what? Or they'd mention their age and I'd be like, wait, what? And then I was like looking at their actions and I'm like, okay, how are you this old and still doing this though? So I didn't love that. What I did really like about it though was Cole. I thought he was really well developed. He had insecurities that were very reflective in both like his words and his actions, which I often find is lacking in romance. Either the author just tells you this is how it is and that's why they're doing this and it doesn't really show you the connection. I thought this really did a good job of bridging that. I love Cole. He also has this really cute cat that I was like obsessed with the whole story. So that's what saved it from being a 1 star for me, was really Cole. But overall, I probably wouldn't recommend. It is a standalone series. I think it's the second in the series. I won't be picking up the rest of the series. I was kind of disappointed overall, but I didn't really go in with high hopes because this is just something I stumbled across. So, wasn't crushed by it, but won't be sticking around in my mind for that long. The last romance novel I read this month was Liar by Fiona Cole, and this one came through. This one delivered. I think I gave this one a 4 star. I had a blast. So this is the 5th one in the Voyeur series, I think. I hadn't picked up anything else from the series at the time. I saw an Instagram rec reel for it and I was like, oh yes, this is it. And it did not let me down. So this one is a uncle's best friend, but she's really close to her uncle, so it's more like, think of it like dad's best friend kind of trope. So it follows Olivia and Kent and Olivia's uncle kind of own like a sex club that's not a sex club together, but whatever. And she sneaks in one night, he doesn't know it's her, and then they have a wild night all before the book starts. And then this book picks up 2 years later when they're sitting across from each other at dinner going, I know you and I haven't seen you in a while, but it was like a good time, what's up? And then they end up working together. So you also have that like boss employee dynamic in there. So there's like age gap, uncle's best friend, boss employee, there's BDSM in here. Honestly, it was just all around a fun time. I was in like a really bad mood when I was like, I need something to read and like something to like flip me out of this. So I picked it up and it absolutely delivered, and I was having a blast by the end of it. An absolute blast. Okay, it's fun, it's hot, they have decent communication, you're kind of feeling for the characters. I appreciated Kent and like his stance on things, but I also understood like Olivia's hesitancy. And yeah, overall I would recommend this. I'm definitely going to check out the entire rest of the series because now I'm obsessed and I'm like, yes, love, had so much fun, yes. Okay, bridging that over into the novellas, after I finished Liar, I picked up 2 novellas following the same couple. So the first one was Watch With Me, and it is very, very short. I think it's only like 30 pages. The story of how they first met, like their first night together. So I was like, oh my god, that's here? Yes, let me go check this out. I ended up only giving that 2 stars, which is really unfortunate because I was on a high off of the book. But it just kind of fell short for me in terms of like the spice. It wasn't how I imagined the first night going down. I felt like it kind of actually conflicted a little bit with like the first book and some stuff we knew. So I was just kind of like, kind of wish you'd have like left it to my imagination. But again, not terrible. The next one I picked up was Falter, and it follows the same couple 5 years later. So it's more than just like an extended epilogue, but the couple's having some issues now and some like real life problems, and it's affecting their relationship both with each other and then also, you know, with their friends and family. And they kind of have to deal with that and find a way to like work through this and like what are they going to do about it. So I gave this one a 3 stars because I really did think it held true to the story and held true to the characters, and I find that often epilogues or anything like this where the author leaves the characters and then comes back and tries to write them again, there's often a disconnect between the original story and the new one. I really didn't feel that with this one. I really felt that the author had a strong grasp still of the same characters that they wrote about in the first book, and I really did appreciate that because it did feel like I was hopping into the same couple 5 years down the road, and they had changed, they weren't identical, but they were still the same people. However, it was just kind of like anticlimactic overall. Olivia was just kind of annoying me in it. And I know that was like kind of the point and she had her reasons, but I was just like, this is extreme, this is unnecessary, and it just didn't hit quite the same. So I didn't love it, didn't hate it. I appreciated it that it exists because I did like hopping back in with those characters and having like more to read with them. But definitely of like these 3 stories, I loved Liar the most. I just so excited to jump into the rest of her like novel series. Another novella I read was Claimed by My Ex's Dad and His Friend, and I think you know what we're getting into from the title alone. So last week I did a recommendation video of my favorite trope, Ex's Dad, so you should go check that out. I'll link it somewhere. I don't really know how the links work yet, but somewhere you should be able to click on it. I'll figure that out. I think I ended up having like 6 recs or 4 recs on that list that I hadn't gotten to yet myself. So I was like, you know what? These have just been sitting buried in my Goodreads TBR. Let me go check this out. So I picked this one up, and yeah, it is what it is. It didn't take itself too seriously, which is why I don't think I went lower than 3 stars. Open the first page and it's a map of Eggplant Canyon. That's literally what she called it. So I was like, you know what? Okay. So this one follows a girl and her next door neighbor, kind of. So her and her boyfriend live next door to each other. They both went away for university, came back to get jobs. She moves back and sees him cheating on her. Confronts him, they break up. And then she starts to have some exhibitionist times with his dad by stripping in her bedroom window and just like making eye contact with him in his office, like across the fence line. And he's just like, she's hot. And she's like, I would like him to come up here. Friend of the dad just kind of like leans forward and sticks his head out the window. And she's like, oh, there's 2 of them. Okay, let me put on more of the show. But yeah, and then they just kind of pursue each other, all 3 of them. And they just kind of have like a spicy time. Honestly, I was expecting more spice in this one than was actually there. But also, I'm okay with that because it wasn't really that great. Like, I really didn't feel like I was missing out. It is what it is. Gave it 3 stars, stuck it in the middle. I'm not ecstatic about it and I don't hate it. So there, that's that. Okay, and then the last one I have for this month is Husky by Jessica Kane. This was another romance novella off of the Big Boys recommendation video by Books with Samantha. So again, I will link that down below. And despite what I'm about to tell you, you should definitely go check out that video because I will be making it through like other books on that list. And also, I just love her content. This book, however, was not it for me. I gave this one a 1 star. This was supposed to be following a like fashion designer who is looking for like a muse for her men's wear line, and then she stumbles into a bar and she's like, oh, the bartender, yes, it should be you. This was so ridiculously insta-lovey, and I know it's a novella, okay, I get that, but this was like beyond that. Also, how many times do I have to hear about a man's chest hair? I was dying. I was like, please stop, please stop. Please stop. Like, you don't have that much space. This is a novella, okay? You don't need to repeat it. I don't need 90 descriptions of this man's chest hair or what she wants to do with it, okay? Could not relate. Didn't want to hear about it. Didn't want to read about it. I was not having it. That's not for me. If that's your thing, check out this book because it's on like every page, it felt like. But it wasn't it for me. The book lacked any sort of like character depth, any sort of like character connection. Nada. Like, there was nothing connecting these characters. They were just like instantly like, oh yes. And I was like, how? Based on what? Like, I don't even know if they had 3 conversations. And they're like, I love her. I love him. And I'm like, again, based on what? So this one really irritated me. I also didn't realize it at the time, but Jessica Kane's also the author of The Husband Sitter, which I read last month, and you can go check out that January wrap-up. But I gave that one a 1 star as well, so I'm feeling like these are the only 2 Jessica Kanes I've ever read. I gave them both 1 stars. I'm just gonna leave the author and be like, you know what, probably not for me. But I mean, hey, at least now I know. So in terms of reflecting on the goals I laid out for this month, I didn't do that great. So I read technically 10 stories and only 1 of them was off my physical TBR. So that didn't help towards my 90% total. I did read 1 off my currently reading, so Well of Ascension. I did take that one off the currently reading list. And I did read at least 1 from 3 genres. I am in the middle of like 3 science fictions right now. I don't know why I didn't just like finish one, but I just kept starting books after Ender's Game, and now I'm like halfway through many of them. So it was a more balanced like reading amount than it looks on the screen, but again, mostly because those novellas really like push it over one way, and pretty much every novella I read is a romance. But that concludes my February wrap-up. If you want to see more of me, you can check me out over on Instagram. I'll attach my username down in the captions below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe down below. I post videos every Tuesday and Friday, so ring the bell for notifications, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye!